If you released a movie in 2025, there was a genuine possibility that almost nobody bought a ticket. We're talking about films with recognizable actors, real budgets, festival buzz, and actual theatrical releases that couldn't even scrape together $1 million at the box office, and some didn't hit 200,000. Let me put this in perspective. Benedict Cumberbatch, Daisy Ridley, and Nicolas Cage all starred in movies last year that most people have never heard of, and the numbers are so low that you'd think I'm making them up. So what happened, and why did 2025 become the year where mid-budget movies went to die? Anniversary is a political thriller that Lionsgate put into 800 theaters in March, which is not a limited release but a wide launch. The cast included Jared Harris, Diane Lane, and Ben Whishaw, and the budget was around $7 million. But on opening weekend, it made $259, which works out to about $324 per theater. By the time it left theaters, the total gross was $630. The studio blamed the subject matter since political dramas were already a tough sell, and apparently audiences in 2025 had zero appetite for anything that reminded them of current events, while the filmmakers blamed Lionsgate for burying the movie with almost no marketing. Both things can be true, but the real problem was awareness, since if you asked 100 movie fans in April 2025 whether they'd heard of Anniversary, maybe 5 would say yes. The movie existed in theaters for about 3 weeks and then vanished like it never happened. The Thing with Feathers came out in May with Benedict Cumberbatch playing a grieving father in a psychological drama that premiered at Cannes in 2024, which usually means something. The reviews were mixed but respectful, and opening weekend, it went into 400 theaters before finishing its run with a total gross just over $800,000. Cumberbatch is an Oscar nominee who's been in massive franchises, but put him in a quiet, emotionally heavy drama with no spectacle, and suddenly, the name recognition doesn't matter. The movie wasn't bad, it just wasn't essential, and in 2025, being pretty good didn't cut it anymore. The gap between the Cannes premiere and the theatrical release was almost a year, which meant whatever buzz existed at the festival had completely evaporated by the time regular audiences could actually see it. Daisy Ridley's Cleaner is probably the most depressing example on this list, since it carried a $25 million budget but earned under $1 million at the box office. Ridley plays a crime scene cleaner who gets pulled into a dangerous situation in this standard thriller setup that was competently made with nothing offensively bad about it. But when it opened in February, it landed with the sound of absolutely nobody caring. The final number was somewhere around $980,000 on a $25 million budget, and the math on that is genuinely horrifying if you're anyone involved with the production. Ridley was recently the lead in a Star Wars trilogy, and she's recognizable and can act, but none of that translated into people buying tickets for a mid-tier crime thriller they'd never heard of. Nicolas Cage made 3 movies that got theatrical releases in 2025, and one of them, called The Carpenter's Son, made less than $500,000. Cage plays a man who believes he's receiving divine messages in this slow burn drama that opened in a limited release across 150 theaters, and the total gross ended up around $440,000. Cage is in an interesting position since he makes a lot of movies where some go straight to streaming and some get tiny theatrical windows, but even with his name and his fan base, this one couldn't generate interest. The movie came and went in late August, which is already a dumping ground for releases studios don't believe in. And the timing matters, since late August means you're competing with the last gasps of summer blockbusters while being too early for award season. Nobody's looking for a meditative Nicolas Cage drama in that window. Seven Veils premiered at the Toronto International Film Festival in September 2024 as a psychological thriller about an opera director with strong reviews and a lot of praise from Amanda Seyfried on social media. It finally got a theatrical release in March 2025 across 15 theaters and earned a total gross of $180,000. This happened over and over again in 2025, where a movie would premiere at Sundance or TIFF, get decent reviews, and then just sit on a shelf for 6 months to a year. By the time it actually came out, nobody remembered it existed, and the festival circuit that used to be a launching pad became more like an eulogy. King Ivory is another one, a crime drama that premiered at SXSW in 2024 but didn't get a release until May 2025, when it made about 120,000 total across maybe 50 theaters. Studios acquired these movies at festivals, realized they didn't know how to market them, and then dumped them into theaters with minimal support just to fulfill contractual obligations. Somebody greenlit a Romeo and Juliet musical where all the dialogue is replaced with existing pop songs, and the budget was reportedly in the 15 to 20 million range. It opened in late January and earned less than 400,000 total gross. On paper, maybe you can see the pitch since it's Shakespeare made accessible for younger audiences with music they already know. Except the execution was apparently baffling. Critics described it as chaotic, and audiences didn't show up in the first place. This is the kind of high-concept swing that might work as a low-budget experiment, but when you're spending real money on it and putting it in theaters, you need more than a quirky idea since you need a reason for people to care. There was a psychological horror film called The Manor, set in a retirement home with an older cast, creepy atmosphere, and dementia themes that made less than $300,000. Horror in 2025 had a problem since the genre is cheap to make and there's a flood of them, which means unless you have a strong hook, a viral marketing campaign, or genuine word of mouth, you're dead on arrival. This one had none of those things and came out in October, which should be perfect timing for horror. But it was buried under Halloween releases with bigger budgets and actual advertising. Most people probably saw the poster once in a theater lobby and forgot about it immediately. Lionsgate was reportedly having serious cash flow problems in 2025, and you can see it in how they handled releases. Flight Risk with Mark Wahlberg got a wide release in January and earned under $40 million domestic on a reported $40 million budget, which is a failure that at least crossed the $1 million mark barely. But then you've got Never Let Go with Halle Berry, a September release horror thriller that made about $12 million domestic, which sounds okay until you remember it was in over 2,000 theaters with a recognizable star, and the international numbers didn't save it either. The pattern with Lionsgate in 2025 was to put movies into theaters with almost no marketing, hope for the best, and then pull them after a week or two when they inevitably crashed, which is a survival strategy since struggling studios can't throw good money after bad. Why does a Witchboard remake exist in 2025 when the original came out in 1986, and it's not exactly a beloved classic with a built-in fan base demanding a new version? The remake opened in early December and made about $350,000 across maybe 100 theaters. This is the definition of a movie nobody asked for, since horror remakes can work when there's genuine affection for the original, or when you bring a fresh angle. But this had neither. It was cheap to make, cheap to market, and it died quietly. Behind every one of these failures, there are directors who deferred their salaries, actors who took pay cuts to get the movie made, and crew members who worked for months on something they believed in. The Thing with Feathers took years to put together with a director who fought to get it made, and then it earned less than $1 million, which means almost nobody will see it, unless it eventually lands on a streaming service where it disappears into an algorithm. Making a movie is already hard, getting it distributed is harder, and getting people to actually show up is nearly impossible unless you're a massive franchise, or you get incredibly lucky. So what killed these movies? A few things happening all at once. Theatrical windows got weird since some movies went to streaming so fast that audiences started waiting instead of buying tickets. And why pay for a theater ticket when you can watch it at home in a month? Marketing budgets dried up since if a studio doesn't believe in a movie, they're not going to spend money advertising it, and without awareness you're invisible. Genre fatigue set in, and audiences got pickier, since a decent thriller used to be enough. But in 2025, decent wasn't enough because you needed great, or you needed gimmicky, or you needed stars people actually cared about seeing on a big screen. And there's the elephant in the room, where streaming trained audiences to wait, and mid-budget movies lost their theatrical audience because that audience now expects everything to show up on a platform eventually. 2025 was a bloodbath for mid-budget filmmaking. Since if you weren't a blockbuster or a carefully positioned awards contender, your chances of box office success were close to zero. These movies aren't all bad, since some of them are fine and some are actually good. But fine and good don't matter if nobody knows you exist and nobody's willing to take a chance on something unfamiliar. The future probably looks like big studio tentpoles on one end, ultra-low-budget indies on the other, and almost nothing in between. The movies we just talked about are the last gasps of a model that's already dead. So here's my question for you. Did you see any of these movies, and did you even hear about them before this video? Let me know in the comments. And if you want more deep dives into box office disasters and Hollywood's shifting landscape, subscribe, because we're just getting started. See you in the next one.